Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm gonna start my presentation about why secondary schools worldwide should start later. And let me start with a simple question. How many students do you know who wake up tired, struggle through first period, and spend the morning trying to stay awake? For many people, that sounds normal, but it should not be normal. Today, I want to persuade you that secondary schools worldwide should start later because later times improve student health, concentration, and academic performance. This is not just a local issue. It is an international education and public health issue. Research shows that adolescent sleep deprivation is common in many countries, that early school schedules conflict with teenage biology, and that later start times can improve student outcomes. First, I will explain the problem of student sleep deprivation. Second, I will show why early school schedules are a major cause of that problem. And third, I will argue that later start times are realistic and effective solution. So the first point is the problem itself. So teenagers, they need sleep, and many are not getting enough of it. According to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, teens ages 13 to 18 should regularly get between 8 to 10 hours of sleep per 24 hours. However, the CDC reports that in the United States, about 72.7% of high school students do not get enough sleep on school nights. Insufficient sleep is associated with poor mental health, attention, and behavior problems. That is also injuries and weaker academic performance. And this is not only an American problem. A study published in the Journal of Adolescent Health examined adolescents in 24 countries and found insufficient sleep on school days is common across many countries. That means this issue crosses borders, cultures, and school systems. So the problem is clear. Students in many parts of the world are not getting enough sleep. And that lack of sleep affects how they learn, feel, and function. So my second point right now will be the cause. And a major reason students are sleep deprived is that school often starts too early for adolescent biology. This is not just about laziness or poor discipline. During adolescence, internal circadian rhythm shift, which naturally leads to later sleep and wake times. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine states that middle and high schools should start at between 8:30 a.m. or later, so students can arrive healthy, awake, alert, and ready to learn. That point is important because it changes the debate. If students are consistently tired, the issue is not only personal responsibility, it is also a policy issue. When schools begins too early, they force students into a routine that does not match how their bodies actually work. Most people recognize the result. Students struggle to focus in morning classes. They feel more irritable, less motivated, and less prepared to retain information. Many are expected to handle academic work, sports, jobs, and family responsibilities while beginning the day already exhausted. As a student, I think that part is easy to understand. It is difficult to perform well when your day begins and your body is not truly ready. It becomes even harder when schools treat exhaustion as a normal instead of seeing it as a structural problem. So now, my third point, the solution. And it's really simple. Schools should start later. This is not just a nice idea. It is a research supported solution. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine says later start times promote adequate sleep opportunity, classroom alertness, academic performance, reduce tardiness and absences, better mental health, and driving safety. More evidence supports their argument. A 2022 meta analysis published in Pediatrics found that later school start times were associated with better overall development outcomes, longer sleep durations, and less negative mood. The same analysis found that new start times between 8:30 a.m. and 8:59 a.m. were associated with better outcomes than start times between 8 and 8:29. There is also a newer international evidence. A 2026 Journal of Adolescent Health study on flexible later start times reported measurable improvements in sleep, health, and academic outcomes. That matters because it shows that later starts are not just theoretical, they can work in real schools. So now I want to show you guys the opposite side, okay? Some people say that students just so simply goes to sleep earlier. That sounds simple, but it ignores adolescent biology. If teens naturally fall asleep later, telling them just to sleep earlier does not solve the problem. Others argue that later starts would create scheduling problems for transportation, sports, or after school jobs. But those concerns are real, but they are logistical challenges, not reasons to ignore student health and learning. If we know students need more sleep, if we know early schedules contribute to sleep deprivation, and if we know later starts improve outcomes, then keeping very early start times becomes harder to defend. So let's go to a summarization of everything. I made 3 points. First, the problem that adolescents is in many countries are not getting enough sleep. The second one, the cause. Early school start times are a major reason why that happens. And third, the solution. That later start times are a realistic, evidence-based solution that can improve health, focus, and academic success. And now, the question is not whether students are tired. We already know they are. The real question is whether schools are willing to respond to that reality. If secondary schools worldwide want students to be healthier, more focused, and more prepared to learn, then they should start later. Students should not have to fight their own biology just to get through the first period. So that was my presentation. Thank you.